Evolutionary Hardcore 2.0 is coming your way. This is episode 194. Today's a very important topic. We're going to talk about female steroid options and tips, tricks by Ultima. So this is a very, very important one. And those of you out there listening to this, if you got wives, girlfriends, nieces, cousins, um, and either even moms or aunts that want to think about using steroids, very, very important that they do it the right way. Also, you'd be surprised how many people come to me, how many women come to me because they want help with their husbands or their boyfriends' steroid cycles. Well, how about the flip side? I've had men come to me and they want help with their spouses, their wives, their girlfriends, how they can run steroids safely. So you're in for a real treat on this one, whether you're male or female. This is a great episode to check out. And if you want to show your girlfriends or wives this episode, that's a great, great idea. So we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to talk about how the female body works so people understand the differences. We're going to talk about the side effects that women have to watch out for. Men have to watch out for side effects with anabolic steroids, but women really have to watch out. And we're going to get into that. We're also going to go over 6 logs on evolutionary.org. 6 great female logs. And we're going to talk about the steroids that they're using. And you're going to get some ideas. And then we're going to talk about why we recommend Ultima. But first, let me remind everybody we are on Apple. We are on Spotify. We are, of course, evolution.org. You can always come on the evolution.org forum, listen to our podcast. Look, we're pumping out about 50 to 100,000 views within 2 weeks when we put out these podcasts. And that's just on our website. If you take all the platforms, it's even more. So we're really reaching out a big audience. But the algorithms hate us. So if you go on some of these other platforms out there, they hate our guts. So it's very, very important that you're liking, subbing on all the platforms you can. I like to listen to the podcast while I'm driving. Yesterday I had to drive an hour. I had to drop off a check, drive an hour back. I listened to the podcast. Very, very good entertainment. It kind of makes the drive seem shorter. So check us out on all the platforms. You got to help us out. This is a community podcast. We're not sponsored by we don't buy followers. We're not sponsored by some supplement companies out there. This podcast is raw. This podcast is hardcore. We talk about stuff that no one else talks about. So we really do that, and we sacrifice views to bring you the best information on this stuff. So you've got to help us out. Like, subscribe, comment, give us reviews, and all that good stuff. So let's get right into it, Mobster. Talk about how the female body works a little bit. So, look, females naturally produce hormones in their body just like men. And females will produce most of their testosterone from their ovaries, while men will produce them from our Leydig cells. So your balls, your nuts, those are your Leydig cells. That's where you're producing the testosterone. They're being fed by the pituitary glands, and then those hormones that the pituitary glands are sending to your Leydig cells, to your balls, are producing the testosterone. But women, they produce it differently through mostly their ovaries. There's also a smaller amount that's produced from the adrenal glands and also the peripheral tissues. In the end of the day, women are going to produce less testosterone than men. That's something that is the way it works with the female body. Now, there's also going to be a different recovery process in females versus men because men produce it through the Leydig cells, and the Leydig cells are fed by the pituitary glands. When men use anabolic steroids, the pituitary glands go dormant. I've talked about it many times on this podcast. So your HPTA shuts down. It's called shutdown, suppression, whatever you want to call it. Now, with women, it's different. So, women, the PCT that women have to do doesn't have to be so HPTA centric like men do. Men want a soft landing. Men want to take something that's going to manipulate the pituitary glands into producing hormones. Women, on the other hand, their reproductive system is going to be different. When it comes to your recovery as a female, you're going to want to focus more on your organ health, on limiting stresses during your PCT. So for women, you still should be doing a PCT when you come off your gear, and you should still be cycling off a gear. Why? Even though you don't have balls, and even though you don't have to worry about your balls producing testosterone and bouncing back the way men do, you still have to worry about your liver, your organs, your skin, your brain health, your kidneys, all your organs in your body, your red blood cell count, the way the anabolic steroids are damaging your heart health. Heart health, last I checked, and I'm sure it's still number one on this list, Mobster, in America, is the number one killer among women, heart disease. So if you're using anabolic steroids, and your hematocrit is going up, your red blood cells are going up, your blood is thickening, what do you think is going to happen to your heart health as a female? So it's still important for females to cycle off steroids just like it is for men. And it's also important for females to be using their support supplements as their PCT and also doing things, that your support supplement, you can come on the forum and find a good product for that, should include a good multivitamin because you want your vitamins and minerals to be strong. You need your vitamins and minerals for your body to function correctly. You also should be getting correct sleep. You also should be continuing to consume a proper diet. You also should be continuing to train, just like men are. And you also, when you're using anabolic steroids, and I'm sure Mobster can talk about this, you also need to protect your joints, just like men have to. Especially because a lot of these steroids that women are using, and we're going to go over the steroids that women on our forum are using and the women that are logging on our forum are using, you are going to be run into a lot of these compounds that really nail your joints pretty hard. So you
Yeah.
still need to be using consuming your omega 3s, whether it be
Yes.
your fish oil supplements or your chondroitin or your MSM or all those stuff for your joints because you're going to end up with joint problems just like men will. And you're going to get stronger on cycle just like men do, and your soft tissues and your joints aren't going to be able to handle it. So there's still a lot that women have to do, even though women's reproductive system is different than men's.
Yeah, let me just address a couple of points, Steve, and I don't disagree with anything that Steve's just said. And I'm thinking in the history of the sport, and especially culturally and statistically speaking, the last few years, for the most part, I don't think I'm off the mark here, Steve. For the most part, women that lift and train typically are smaller and lighter than the average man. They hold, and this is all women, but again, this is women that specifically train, go to the gym, compete, want to get in shape. They hold body fat in different areas to men. There is a modules on some of the physical training instructor, gym instructor type courses you do, where the small differences between women and men that train. For example, women holding fat in the quote unquote bingo wings, which is the back of the arms. Women more likely to hold fat around the hips and the thighs versus men more likely to hold fat around the belly. And again, specifically, the things that a woman might, and especially a woman in shape, might want in terms of the structure and how she wants to change her body in the gym versus a man. Now, the whole equality thing is fine. The sexual representation thing is fine. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and specifically as we will address when it comes to PEDs, you can argue what you want, but how a woman's body responds to on a dose for dose basis, steroids versus a man is just different. And this is not something you can argue your way out of. You might argue potentially, and this again is just something, one of those arguable, debatable conversations where if you are dealing with the absolute elite genetic freak, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, you are, whether it's a man or a woman, looking at absolute out and out freaks. So a woman that has a very high disposition, an ability to handle testosterone, etc., is going to be rare versus the majority of women. And these podcasts must be, unless we're specifically talking about someone who's in that particular elite position, we must generalize. We must say that for the most part, this is what's going to happen. This is how they're going to respond. I think my gym is slightly atypical. The gym that I go to, in spite of the fact I have training facilities here, Steve, in that we have probably a 60-40 ratio. 60%, I would argue, come in and get their shit done. And these women are, for the most part, based on what the general population would perceive, in shape. And I think What we're talking about today when we're looking at the logs is that kind of starting place. Women that are either trying to get stronger or more muscular, or already kind of based on what people in the street would look at, the mass media would look at, in kind of shape already, but looking to improve their shape, looking to harden up and so on. And then the other 20, 30, 40% in our gym that I go to, which is it's not a pure meathead gym, but it's kind of in that direction. It's not a mass market 24-hour, $10 a month kind of gym. It's a little bit more hardcore, but it's got elements like myself, which is hardcore, and some which are not. The other 30 to 40% are people that are out of shape, that are working with PTs, doing cardiovascular work, doing light weights, etc., with a view to losing superfluous fat to get into the shape, regaining shape after pregnancy, and so on and so forth. And in that particular way, we've probably got a slightly higher percentage in most clubs, gyms, etc., worldwide, of women that are in shape, wearing the sports attire, etc., etc. And again, on our forums, we're not getting overweight mums really that when we're talking about these logs today, and these are the biggest logs we've got when it comes to women. We're not talking about an overweight mum post pregnancy wanting to get her mum bob back and look a certain particular way. We have had that, but for the most part, we're kind of more hardcore and edgy. So again, some of the information we're going to talk about is going to be specific to those logs and what these women specifically want for themselves. But when we're talking about PEDs of all kinds, and specifically how the body will respond, it's going to be more generalized to the vast percentage of our female listeners. One of the things I wrote down, and I mentioned this to Steve in a pre-show, this is just from a overall perspective again, and it was actually one of the women in one of these logs that made the comments, Steve, as I said during the pre-show. They happened to mention, or one of the men might have mentioned in one of the ladies' logs, how many more women are competing in shows worldwide. And what they meant by that is there's probably more female classes than there's been historically, because previously, Steve, there was fucking none. 30, 40 years ago, there was no women's classes. And fairly obviously, the promoters have realized, and it's actually good for the sport and good for women as well, of course, that female classes essentially going to mean women on stage in the bikinis, and women of all shapes and sizes. So there are different classes for women as there are for men: classic, open, pro, uh, physique, and so on. For men, there is physique classes for women. There are obviously bikini classes for women. There's fitness, figure, and so on and so forth. And there's money to be made, but also it means that any woman that wants to get into shape can find a class, like most men, that suits them, suits their aim, suits their physique, makes them train harder in the gym. And fairly obviously, they were talking about just the sheer numbers. And so, for example, at some of the regional competitions, Steve, it is roughly 50-50. It was never that. Even back in the day, 60s and 70s, I think there was a Miss Universe, but it was all what we would call a soft bikini type versus what we see now. And another thing as well, so Steve just mentioned this to me, and it has to be said, there is some money to be made. There's fairly obviously a woman who looks lean and muscular, live, Lithe, in that kind of shape, has a career, if she wants one, I would argue a secondary career for sure, like it is for men, in terms of fitness, figure, apparel. Even they're very expensive, Steve. If we think posing briefs for men are expensive, the posing outfits for women with the fake jewels, etc., sewn onto them are hundreds of dollars. So there's some money to be made promoting female bodybuilding, promoting female fitness attire. The big name mass media type brands that we talk about for gym users of all kinds. And I think that specifically, and this is just a brand, Steve, Gymshark, there's some proper money to be made for female influencers. And I would actually argue that female influencers probably have an easier job in shape of making money through what they do via Instagram, via YouTube, whatever else. Because for whatever reason, the men are obviously going to be interested, but at the same time, they're also promoting health. They're also getting women more comfortable with going to gyms. I would argue in the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe pre-COVID, so the last 6, 7 years, we've got more women at the gym that I go to than we've ever had. And whether that means they're over there in the corner using 2 plates on a leg press and I'm putting 30 fucking plates on the leg press, who gives a fuck? Because these women are coming to the gym, they're kicking ass, they're taking names, they're staying in shape, and look good. So some of what we're going to talk about today is these women and their logs, inspirational shit, Steve, putting their stuff out there. One of the things you'll be doing if you do that kind of thing is you will be motivating, inspiring other women to be comfortable and go into macho quite gyms and getting a hardcore workout in, regardless of where you're at. You might have the muscle of a teenage male, but how many women look like you do? How many women are going to the gym and sweating their fucking asses off? How many women, just my gym, Steve, getting a woman to bench press 60 kilos, getting another woman to bench press 90 kilos, which is 200 pounds. 60 kilos is plate aside 132 pounds, and so on and so forth. And the idea of women being strong, being muscular, and not being uncomfortable with that kind of precept. So the whole vibe, it is important, and we will focus on this probably in the next segment to understand just how potent certain hormones are, and you
Yeah.
must absolutely understand. But one of the things I was just going to finish on that, Steve, and I want to put this out is going back to those competition and how many women are competing. It must be said, it must be understood, arguably at least the same level as men. There are more women that are competing, and in all classes, there seems to be some use, even if it's a small use, of PEDs. And again, because of the way it affects the body differently. So even in figure physique, even fitness type classes,
Yeah, we're
etc.,
gonna
the
get
women
into that
are
now.
using
Yeah.
PEDs. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's get into side effects, and then we need to save a lot of time to go over the log. So let's kind of cut to the chase when it comes to side effects. So viralization is the word of the day. And viralization doesn't mean catching the flu or catching COVID. That's not what viralization means. It means in this situation, what happens to females when there's a higher amount of androgens in their body. And the main side effects of this with females, and some of this stuff actually carries over the men. The first three things, which is body, facial hair, large shoulders, muscle mass. You ever see those women in the gym with those big shoulders, wide shoulders, thick shoulders? Men too. When men use anabolic steroids, they get the same thing. Body and facial hair. My facial hair grows quicker. My body hair goes quicker when I'm on cycle. Now, some people don't report that. Some men don't report that. But I definitely do. I'm a hairy guy. So for me, it does happen. Muscle mass, same thing with men. Things that women get that men don't get. Enlarged clitoris. This is something that's happened before. And it doesn't get talked about much because it's embarrassing. Just like how men don't like to talk about their impotence because it's
Mm.
embarrassing. Deepening voice. You ever seen women and you hear them talk and they sound, borat, borat, and they get that deepening voice. Well, the anabolic steroids can cause that, and some of these side effects can become permanent with females, just like how side effects in men can become permanent. As a man, if you use anabolic steroids, you can blow out your reproductive system on one cycle. I've seen it happen many times, especially if you're a young guy. If you use anabolic steroids as a man at 18, 19 years old, by the time you're 22, 23, you've got no tests being produced. So there are risks for women, even though women, as I said in the prior segment, don't have to worry about the same having their hormones rebound afterwards because their hormones are produced differently. And then again with women, the risk of cancer and tumors is there. Adrenal and ovarian tumors can get fired up from an excessive amount of androgens, just like with men, your prostate. If your prostate has cancer cells already, and as a man you use anabolic steroids, you throw that estrogen effect and those androgen effects at your prostate, it's going to blow up those tumors all over your body. We see bodybuilders get autopsies done, young bodybuilders, they find cancer in their body. They're like, wow, this is crazy. He's only in his 20s and he has cancer. Well, because he abused anabolic steroids for years. What do you think those tumor cells feed on? They love those androgens. So less serious side effects, skin issues and balding hair. That's also a possibility. Just like with men, same thing. There's also a good chance of menstrual cycle issues where women say their cycles get halted temporarily while on steroids. And we used to see that a lot back on the old EF form. We had a lot of females using anabolic steroids, and they would be open about this. They'd be like, "Yeah, I've been on steroids for 2 months. I missed my period recently, blah, blah, blah." It's sort of like when you get pregnant, you miss your period. It's the same thing because your hormones get thrown off. Another thing too, and I'll let Mobster jump in, is the personality changes. We've seen women, I've seen husbands come to me and boyfriends, and they's like, "Oh, my lady, she's on anabolic steroids, whatever." Or I've seen a lesbian couple, her spouse came to me like, "Yeah, my lady, she's being bitchy with me. She's starting fights with me. She's being impatient, and she's horny. Is this normal?" I say, "Yeah, it's normal." Same thing with men. Sometimes when men use anabolic steroids, especially the more aggressive anabolic steroids, men can become more aggressive, more horny, more nasty in some cases, more impatient in some cases, especially if you're an immature person. That can happen. Same thing with women. And women, will become, so you'll see the personality changes just like with men. They might get more confident in themselves, and they might decide, "You know what? I don't need you, man. I don't need you in my life. I can get a better guy. I'm in better shape now. Fuck you. I'm gonna break up with you and go find a better guy." That happens. So there's all these different things that can happen when anabolic steroids are used. So those are side effects to
Yeah.
watch out for females. Go ahead, Monster. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the extreme level of competitive female bodybuilding, and I'm talking about all classes, there's been a discussion recently. We're probably going to do a show on this in the future that there are more professional bodybuilders, male and female, that are passing away earlier than they should be. Just in the last day or two, Steve, a female, I think, fitness figure competitor, 27 years of age, passing away. And there was a big deal a couple of years ago where a particular coach, because the women had not got into decent shape pre-competition, they would go to this particular coach who's giving them stupidly extreme cycles for women to do, and it was making them ill. So that was a really, really big one. Just to finish on a slightly more positive note, the sexual thing. The late Mike Matarazzo, I saw him in seminar, and I forget the name of his lady, but she was a competing female bodybuilder. And he said he'd been training at Gold's Gym one day, Steve, tired, and was going to their apartment, going to their place where they lived, and was putting the key in the lock. And then she yanked the door open before the key had even got into the keyhole, grabbed him into the hallway, and I quote, fucked him on the floor in the hallway. And he just wasn't in the mood because he was so goddamn tired. So, yeah, absolutely. There can be a level of sexual aggression. She doesn't have to take more than a fraction of what he's taking, but it obviously affected. I say in a positive way, he wasn't in the mood. He's tired. He trained legs, whatever. Give me half an hour left for crying out loud, and that was out there. So yeah, absolutely, mate. I have been around competitive female athletes, specifically bodybuilding type, that are going to compete in one or two of the classes in the bodybuilding show. And I have gone to competitions like the Mr. Universe, and you will see the odd one or two. They just catch the eye. It is what it is. But you have to understand these risks, which we will touch upon when we talk about the logs and the reasons why doses are what they are. And you will see, I would be slightly crude and say macho looking, rough talking people that have been affected by their steroid use. They've made that particular decision. They appear to be comfortable with it. But I would want to, same as when we talk about issues with fertility in men from using steroids for too long or too high a dose, understand the risk. That is the important part of this part of the podcast. When we talk about these side effects, some are permanent. You must understand those risks. If you are okay with the risk and you know what we're talking about when we do these shows and talk about the dosages and your psyche, your how you see yourself, your arguably this applies to men as well. Steve, your dysmorphia is okay with this, then we're going to go. So yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's get into the logs right away. So we have a lot of time on them. The first one we're going to talk about now. First of all, if you go on evolutionary.org, you go to the forums tab. On the top right, not very top right, but sort of like on the top right, you'll see a search button. You click on the search button and you can search. You have a search box and you have you can search by member. So if you want to find these logs, and I'm going to include them we're going to include them in the write-ups, we're going to include them in the article. But if you're listening to this while you're driving or something, and you want to pull over and look this up, you can look up these logs as well by using that search button. And the first one we're talking about is amba.zx, amba.zx. She's 21 years old. She's 5'3". She's 62.3 kilograms. She started her current cycle, her plan says April 22nd, started using Rita at, which is Retruded Tried at 4 ml a week, split dosages. Finished Rita cycle 5/17, May 17. And her log is called 2025 Female Training Log. She said she's interested in starting Anavar next week. She wants to go 2 milligrams for 4 weeks. Lab used is Sassy Pharma, she says. Diet overview 1,700 calories, 130 protein, 350 carbs, and 40 gram of fat. So she laid this out. She did a few pages, posted some pictures of herself. She suffered in the past from some anorexia, I believe, Mobster. It says she's recovering from an eating disorder. She started at 45 kilograms and now she got up to 62 kilograms. So she's made some good changes already before she even started her log. And then the idea behind the log was to get even better. So, Mobster, what are your thoughts on Amba?
Yeah, so you and I both commented on in her first few pages of her log, and other people too, Steve. They couldn't understand why she appeared to have only using Retta for 3 weeks. And in fact, she lost 6 kilograms in 3 weeks. She described herself in the initial part of that post as being bottom body dominant, basically big legs, big ass, to put it crudely. I would argue, and I think I said something to that effect of there being still being quote unquote slight issues with dysmorphia. In other words, how the self perception. At the same time, she's putting this information out there, so we try to help her. Number one would probably be comfortable with yourself. Let other people look. As a group, we're not there to judge you per se. We are there to help you. So, if she is bottom dominant, as perhaps she perceives herself to be, do we think she is? Why did she only do the 3 million, the 3 weeks of the Rita, and so on and so forth? And she actually said, lost a lot of weight very, very quickly, was perfectly happy with the result after 3 weeks stopped. We know from we've done the podcast on GLPs, it's a much longer, slower process. The fact that she dropped so much weight so quickly was probably kind of scary, which I think is the way she addressed it. The Anavar, what she's talking about, 2 milligrams, Steve, again, it's just a 4 week cycle. So 2 milligrams as a dose, and you'll notice when we talk about some of the dosages in the other logs, it's a much smaller amount for I think of the 6 logs, Steve, 5 of them are around Anavar and all kind of low dosage. But again, it's why 4 weeks? Why such a short period of time? So again, these are the questions we would ask all members, male or female. Why have you chosen 16 weeks? Why have you chosen 20 weeks? So here it would be why 4 weeks. Overall, here's what I think, and obviously we're going to look. There's multiple pages here, Steve. So we're literally looking at the initial page here, day one, and the thought process for day one. And we over the weeks, many pages, etc. I have no doubt that we've made suggestions to push her perhaps in a slightly different direction. Is 4 weeks a good length of time for you? Again, it's an oral. 4 to 8 weeks would be normal. Is that okay for women? Does it need to be run longer? Will the changes? One of the things I'll talk about in another of the logs is the fact that it had to be changed because of that particular person's competition status changing. And so we've also addressed in other shows, Steve, that need to be flexible. So this, you're literally planning. We come in, we make suggestions, we look at what needs to be done. She's kind of young, 21 years of age. She's not massive, Steve. She is, I would argue, perhaps slightly lower body dominant. But then you could do things like work on your upper body to bring it in line with your lower body. Do you need to slim your legs? Do you need to slim your backside? And so on and so forth. Is she carrying too much fat? I don't think she is. I think at 21 years of age, 62.3 kilograms, which is about 140 pounds, maybe a little bit less, and 5'3". Because of her age, because of the appearance I'm looking in her photographs here, she's one of those ones that it wouldn't take much to transform the physique. And again, at 21, she's got a long journey ahead of her in terms of where this ultimately could go. So she would actually be very good for the younger female listeners and some of the younger men to look at and say, okay, where is she now? Where is she 6, 7, 8, 9 pages in? Has she transformed? even just things like, and just to finish on this, being consistent, being open to suggestion, fixing your diet, perhaps addressing the dysmorphia if there is any in terms of self-perception. I don't look good, I need to look good, that kind of vibe, versus just improving what you've got, working within your own physique and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. Yeah,
Yeah, and look, she has an amazing physique, and she puts together some amazing leg workouts to develop some incredible glutes. So you can go on there and check out her pictures. Next one we're talking about is Mads. So you can search MADS. Her log is called Road to Show 2026 Female Log. I know, Mobster, you want to talk about her. Let me share my notes first. She's been through a lot the past 7 years. She's had knee surgeries. She's had two children. So that, I mean, each of those will put you out from the training. So look, it's been a grind for her, as it is for everyone else out there. Through life we go through ups and downs. She's had an incredible workout routine with 5 days of training and 2 days off on Thursday and Sunday. She also has a very athletic looking physique. And I would have guessed just from looking on that she was a volleyball or basketball player based on her picture. So what she is using 2.5 milligrams Anavar, 2 IUs of growth hormone, and she's also taking 1 milliliter of Kazon, and that's intramuscular. So she's definitely, I like that she is, you know, being very conservative of what she's using, and that's that's kind of one of the things that she's known for on the forum. So she has a really good athletic physique for sure.
yeah. I'm looking at both the before and after pictures. She's done a very good job here, Steve. And I sometimes have to point this out to the guys where they post up their most recent comparative photographs, and I say we need to see, just for the benefit of making those comparisons, where you was and where you are now. She's done a great job. She's got 3 sets of photographs. I think they're literally individual 3 frames. But what she's done is she's put together the before and the after shot in each frame. So you can definitely 100% see that she's transformed her physique from not really out of shape, kind of normal looking, normal what you see around town, someone who's in shape, into what we consider, quote unquote, what we would consider in these kind of forums and these logs and these shows, a more muscular, more athletic looking physique, as Steve said. Some of that is literally the outfit she's wearing, which shows off her physique better, but there's definitely a look with the slimming down and a more muscular shape and so on and so forth. These look to have been over a length of time, Steve, just by virtue of one of them having a really big tattoo in, which must have taken a while. So I'm guessing a couple of years. Um, yeah, and just one of the things she's doing now, I was actually discussing this with a female competitor yesterday, someone that's competed in the past. Again, I think fit is figure, and it's literally that women have to pose themselves slightly differently. The specific one with the arse out, the glutes out type picture, so they arch their back, and that's emphasized. And again, this is just about those parts of the body which are difficult for women to get into shape, and then getting them into shape and having to pose in a certain way. So again, if you do get to this point in your journey, ladies, work with someone that's been on stage, work with a female competitor that's been on stage as a way of doing it. The Kaizen thing, Steve, I've looked at. It is literally L-carnitine, choline, and NAD. And those people that have had access to it do talk about it being great for pre-workouts and so on and so forth. In terms of our actual cycles, I'll discuss these now. And again, notice the last one was two milligrams, 4 weeks of Anavar. This one particularly is 2.5 milligrams of Anavar. That would be daily, Steve. 2 intravenous units of growth daily, and again, the 1 mil of Kaizen. Again, look at the numbers here. I'd actually argue perhaps that the growth might be a little bit high. There is another log that we're going to talk about. I think it is 2 to 2.5 IUs for most people, specifically men, because that's what we're normally talking about. Seems a bit of a sweet spot. So I might look at, does she need to go that high with the growth? It might well be that
I've
growth.
noticed the Australians like to run
Yes.
growth hormone a lot higher,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
was
not
going to
sure
also
why.
argue, Steve, in terms of sheer body mass and men versus women,
I've wondered if it's
whether
because the quality of their growth hormone is less, so it's like they have to run because in America
and
we
they
should
have
be
to get it into the country. I'm also looking
yeah
here as to whether or not women need to run it at the same level as men. I would say no, because the body mass being smaller. But
yeah
you
because
will
they're
notice,
smaller yeah
obviously, fractionally.
Yeah.
For example, a man would typically use 30 to 50 milligrams a day of Anavar. You'll see that a lot of the time when we're talking about PEDs, when we're talking about steroids, Anavar comes up again and again and
Another,
again with women.
another
But
thing.
look at the numbers. This is for the listener. Look at the numbers. It's 2 on the previous log to 2.5 milligrams here of Anavar daily. She doesn't say for how long. Body weight, she's not that much different. The last one was, I think, 63, 64 kilos. Mads is 67.8 kilograms. So again, between 60 and 70 kilograms to both of them. But in terms of her overall improvement, in terms of the physique, what she's doing, how she's focusing, again, just as a training thing, Steve, just to touch on that. And again, this is just what I see in the gym for myself. I don't really understand it because the woman on the street has probably got, and I'll be crude here, too big of an ass because of body fat. The women that come to my gym are training to get into shape, and a lot of them already in shape. And yet I see the glutes being an emphasized. And Mads actually has a day of the week. I think Mondays is glutes and hams. So she's literally working, quote unquote, her backside off and also tightening up the backs of the legs as well. But again, this is possibly because she's looking to compete. And as I said earlier on, what is required, the look that is required on stage is quote unquote glute dominant. There is a sort of aspect to it, certain classes of female bodybuilding, where again, to put it crudely, the way your ass looks on stage is a requirement for you to compete. So I could say, oh, too many women training their backsides, but this is something that she needs to do if she's going to get on stage. And I've competed, you've competed, Steve, in our own niche sports. And the bottom line is you do what needs to be fucking done to win. So, getting into shape, most women do not need to work their asses. But if you're going to compete on stage and you're going to look a certain particular way and you want to win your class, you need to look a certain particular way. That's all it comes down to. But otherwise, she's transformed incredibly well, Steve. She's made great gains, done really, really well, changing her shape from what it is to what she was now. She was not out of shape before, but you can 100% see the difference in her physique. And this is still arguably a relatively mild cycle for most women that the most women could do something with. I might debate the growth hormone only, Steve, but I would say the 2.5 milligrams that we discussed already with her and the previous list, member are perfectly fine. Notice there's no other steroids in there.
Yeah, let's
Literally just the one steroid.
Yeah, and she likes to do a lot of fasted cardio and gets her steps in as well. And that's very, very important. That's a huge, huge thing. I talked about at the beginning about heart health, how it's the number one killer among women. It's also the number one killer among men in America. So both men and women need to be getting their cardio in every day. And fasted cardio is a great way to do it. Next, I want to talk about 2025 Female Build Season Journal NPC Fit Model Bikini Competitor. Her name is Lexus 9784. And she starts out talking about that she's on TRT and she wants to add in Innovar once she gets blood work back. Dosing and frequency, TRT is 10 milligrams one time a week. Anavar starting at 2.5 milligrams a day, which is again like the other two that we talked about. So it's a very mild dose for females. I've seen females run up to 10 milligrams of Anavar, so I'm very surprised that she's also doing 2.5 milligrams also as a competitor. And she says she wants to gauge reaction and then going up to 5 milligrams a day if all goes well. So it's very, very smart what she's doing. And she's going to run the cycle 4 to 6 weeks. And she has pictures up of herself. She is a competitor. You can look at the pictures, and it's quite amazing. She posted before pictures. She looks just like your typical American female, just like a normal female that you would see in the supermarket or at Walmart or something. Not even at a health food store, just like a normal supermarket or a Walmart walking around. And then she turned herself into a legitimate competitor, absolutely lean. She's got pictures of herself in the high heels, and she seems to be really, really enjoying. She says that she started her fitness journey in 2018. Her first show was June 2024, and all three shows she did was March, May, and June. They're all dated, and she posts them for us to see. So if you're interested in really, this is a great one to look at. A lot of women who are listening to this, who are like, well, I can never look like these women who are on the stage. You got to check out Lexus's log. and see what she looked like before. You would have never, it looks like a completely different person, Mobster. You would have never guessed it's the same person. It just shows you that if you have a plan, you use these PEDs to your best, you really work hard, you really set a goal, have a positive mentality that you can produce anything. And if someone she knows were to run into her years later, they wouldn't recognize her because she looks like someone you would see in a movie or on a magazine or something like that. She looks like a model. And before she looked like just the normal like dad, like the dad bod body, the mom body. So, this just shows you can change yourself as a female. There's no need for you to go through life not really loving yourself and not really having confidence in the way you look. And
Yeah,
she's proven it. Another thing I really like about her before I let you talk about her, Mobster, she implements intermittent fasting, which has been a big part of her life, which I'm a big fan of. She also lists out her foods. And if you look through her foods, it's delicious food. I mean, she's not sitting there eating, chicken, rice, and broccoli every day like a lot of people think. She's doing some cool meals, but she's making them healthy. She's cooking them from scratch. Like she's making chicken quesadillas, for example. She's doing tuna and sweet potatoes. She's doing sausage gravy potato casserole. She's making a lot of delicious foods, but she's eating them healthy and she's taking advantage of intermittent fasting. That's been her secret. And it's all about, prepping your own food, food prep, and being consistent with your training. She works out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, boom, 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 rest day. Friday, Saturday, boom, boom, rest day. We've seen this a lot with females, Mobster. 5 days. There's some females, I'm telling you, they work out harder than men. They work out harder than men. Because I know this because I see the same females every time I go to the gym. I see the same females in there. So they're there when I'm there, which tells me they're probably there when I'm not there too. So if I'm working out 3, 4 times a week, they're working out 5, 6, 7 times a week. They work out hard. Go ahead.
so one negative, and this is probably, it could easily have been a mistake when she wrote it down. I don't like to see steroids. This is as a supplement, and she actually puts supplements where she mentions the TRT, and then actually includes the TRT in the cycle plan. And this is a man and women thing. I don't. People will list steroids as supplements sometimes as a psychological thing, as though it's not really that big of a deal, because to me it's like no, it's a drug. So to be clear on that. But again, because she's listed it in both places, it may just well be that TRT is an all the time thing. And again, she is 40 years of age. There's an argument to be made, and I made a note here, Steve, for being pre or post menopause, the hormonal differences, and the idea of having a small dose of testosterone per week, 10 milligrams here, compared to, say, 90 to 120 milligrams, maybe the lower end would be 70 milligrams per week. For a man doing TRT, again, it's fractional. It's at the very least 1/7 or maybe as much as 1/12. And that's just a normal TRT. That's not even a normal quote unquote bodybuilding TRT. So, yeah, the benefits for a small amount of testosterone during and post menopause might arguably be useful. I wrote down a word here, Steve, transformative, when Steve says about the transformation. Mate, honestly, we've got someone we're going to talk about strength wise who's out there, but this lady she's a poster child. You would not believe it was the same woman. You would not see that you come up, apart from the height, Steve, it's hard to get your head around when you see the photographs. And one of the things that Steve touched upon, and I actually think this is really good here when we're talking about this young lady, and I say young lady, she's young to me, is in Lexis's case, women tend to come to the gym, get their shit done, and go. Of all the women that train at my local gym, Steve, very few are there to be sociable. They got other shit going on. Kids are at school, work, whatever. So they come in, half an hour, 45 fucking minutes, no bullshit, cardio done, weights done. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow and get the fuck out of there. So absolutely right. So I wrote down there getting it done there, Steve. Overall, look, she is proof positive that you can look a certain particular way. wake up one day, be dissatisfied with how you look, and think, fuck this. I'm going to go kick my ass. I'm going to make stuff happen. Now, whether you're male or female, you should be inspired. And again, you're going to wear the posing gear. You're going to get your hair done. You're going to get your nails done. You're going to put heels on. But she could have done that on a Saturday night, Steve, when she had the physique she had before. And the tan, the hair thing. One of the things I meant to make a note of is what we call body confidence. And again, this is for men or women that are listening to this show. You don't turn into another person when you lift weights. You don't become Superman if you wasn't Superman before, whether you're male or female. But what you might start to do, Steve, and I think Lexus is probably a good example of this. You will stand more confidently. Your posture somehow seems to improve. Your chest is higher. You're more likely to make eye contact. And that just comes from just the sheer confidence of what you see, looking back at you in the mirror, even making eye contact with yourself, walking around feeling good, looking good, knowing that your clothes sit on you a different way, knowing that there's people who haven't seen you before perceive or haven't seen you for a while see you a different way. You know, if you're a young man, teenager, and you start to train and you get into shape and you kind of almost transform from a teenager into a young man. And especially if you go and see your nan or your auntie, Steve, and they're like, oh, what's happened to you? You know, you've got a shirt on and a pair of trousers on, but your chest is filled out, your shoulders are filled out. To me, Lexus is a great example of that. When I said transformative, I think there's an argument to be made here for being inspirational, Steve, not just for herself, but for other people. But how much more confident do you think she feels? And even if the rest of her life is absolutely on point no matter what, I still think there's an body confidence here has gone up so many levels. And again, all the women on our forums, all these logs are trying to do the same thing. They're all on a similar journey, men as well. And so you sometimes, without realizing it, change your own life and change other people's lives around you just by people being able to see, even if the people that come to the forum, Steve, just looked at Lex's page one and saw those photographs, they go, if she can fucking do it, I can fucking do it. So that's a really nice thing to be able to put that out there, especially I think as in this case, if some of the ladies here are being supported by labs, being supported with product, etc., and they're able to go there and inspire other people to follow their journey. So that's really, really nice. And again, look, she's going on stage. She's not fucking about. She's not just got into shape. She's literally competing and putting herself out there in that sort of place with the NPC, which is the big federation in the States, to get out there, get into serious shows, get into serious shape, put herself up against serious fucking people similar to herself. So she's not playing, Steve, 100%.
Let's move on to the K. That's her name, the space K. So you can look her up. And her log is called Primo Bolin Masteron HGH TB PC TB Female Bodybuilder Cycle. That's the name. And let's go over her cycle. Primo 30 milligrams a week. Masteron 30 milligrams a week. HGH 3 IUs a day. Insulin 4 IUs a day. Shoulder tendon repair healing protocol is TB 500 micrograms. BPC 157 500 micrograms per day. And then GHK-CU 1 milligram, which we're seeing a lot of people start using as an anti-aging peptide. I haven't used that one yet. I might use it in the near future. She tends to work out 6 times a week with 1 day rest. So she is an absolute beast. She also tends to be around 2,200 calories a day with 2 refeed meals a week. So Mobster, the K, she is definitely a competitor and an absolute, she looks extremely muscular. Of all these women that we've talked about on here,
Yes.
I would say she looks like a bodybuilder, and we're gonna get into someone
Yeah,
shortly
we're
who's
going to
more of a
some
powerlifter. Yeah, but
comparable,
she
Steve.
looks
But yeah,
like a bodybuilder, not a bikini. Talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, I was going. I was. This is the one that I mentioned, I touched upon or hinted at earlier on, listeners, where she's arguably using the most gear of all of our athletes that we discussed in the day. She's using the most product, absolutely. But you will notice, for example, and I'll just go over that list again, Steve. This is per week. She hasn't written this down per day. This is per week. So the others we talked about using 2 to 2.5 milligrams per day of Anavar. whereas the K is using Primo 30 milligrams per week. Just to be clear, Masteron 30 milligrams a week. The growth hormone is actually arguably high, and I've said this already for the same reasons me and Steve discussed earlier. And I'm not a big fan of or most people using insulin. Listen, the shoulder repair healing protocol with the GHQ / CU, for the reasons that Steve's already talked about, absolutely no issues there whatsoever. Lots of athletes, if you're training your fucking ass off in the gym, arguably maybe even you're training too much. And sometimes the volume of training, hitting it 6 days a week, not allowing recovery, that might actually aggravate your ability to heal and have issues. But at the same time, you're driven, you want to do these things. That's why you're going to get wear and tear. It happens. I said about it, don't push my body to the nth degree, then bitch about shit, aching afterwards. It's my own fucking fault. I've done it. I made it happen. So I get it. I understand it. But again, if you're giving advice, ease the fuck back off the gas. Maybe don't train 5 days a week until you're coming up to a competition. So that would be a bit of advice. But no, even though arguably she's using the most PEDs, the most drugs, it's still a fraction, with the possible exception of the HGH. Insulin, for example, Steve, we've seen, especially competing athletes, way higher levels, way higher. And again, for the majority of our female listeners, avoid. You do not need to be doing this. Steve, if you want to touch upon insulin sensitivity and specifically women, that would be useful. But again, these are fractional amounts. And just to look at the physique here, Steve, never mind anything else. Yeah, it's tending towards the female physique look. It's not quite there yet. So and she's properly cropped out her face, as you might hope. I would argue she's got to be careful with the virilisation stuff that we touched upon earlier on. I think she's on what we would call the right side right now. It may well be that it goes into the wrong side, quote unquote, if she pushes it harder in competing or whatever else. So right now, again, showing you that women can be strong, showing you that women can be muscular, and so far, so good, Steve. What do you think about the insulin sensitivity and use of insulin in women before we move on?
Well, if you're using a lot of HGH, it's a good idea to use the insulin to get your blood sugar back down. So that's probably why she's doing it. Plus, it's going to allow you to build more muscle than you could. So it is definitely a smart idea to use insulin if you're using a lot of HGH. So at some point, if she reduces her HGH levels to 1 or 2 IU's or one to 1.5 IU's, she won't need the insulin going forward. Same thing with men. So that's something very, very important to do. So let's get into the next one. And the next one is Roid Rage Wife, and I'll let you talk about this more because I know you and her talk a lot, and through PMs and stuff. But I'm gonna go over her cycle that she just updated on her log. She has several logs and very, very long logs. And her recent log is called Roid Rage Road to Powerlifting Record, sponsored by, and then she gives who she's sponsored by. And let's talk about the cycle she's on. Test sip 10 milligrams a week, which is her TRT dose. She's also on HGH, 3 IU's. She's doing 5 days on and 2 days off. And that's a strategy we see people do. It's a money saving strategy, but it's also a strategy you take 2 days off and then you get back on the HGH. And then the cardarine, she's doing 20 milligrams a day, Ulsterine 20 milligrams a day, Cialis 10 milligrams, workout days only. So I see a lot of people using Cialis. I'm not sure why everybody uses Cialis, but I know why they use Cialis. Some people use it for their heart health benefits. Some people use it on their workout days to get more pumps. I think it's a little bit of both with her. I can't remember if she mentioned why, but Mobster, touch upon Roid Rage Wife. Tell us about her
Right.
recent
So,
powerlifting.
so Steve's 100% correct in that I've messaged you like 3 fucking times, Steve, in relation to podcasts we're doing it, and specifically around female use of PEDs, training, etc. I know from talking to her on both the forum and via DM that she said something to the effect of, I think I squatted 1,000+ pounds a few weeks ago, and she was looking to total 1,000 pounds in a recent powerlifting competition. I think she was a little bit under that. So I'll read out the thing here, Steve. Just doing TRT, again, menopausal. Test cypionate, 10 milligrams. This would again would be per week. Daily is a 2 IUs a day. And then she talks about mid-July on a cutting cycle. Now, let me just touch upon something, and this is what we discussed in the DM. So the original plan had been to do two specific powerlifting competitions. And unfortunately, I believe, and she said this in the DM, that they'd started actually kind of prepping for one particular competition, which involved the cycle that she was doing a little bit too early, Steve. And then the kind of second competition got thrown out the window. So basically, and this is something that Steve and I discussed in the pre-show, we've touched upon on other shows, she had to change the fucking plan. This is not really that complicated. It's just a question of what needed to be done. And specifically, as you would imagine, it would be for physique competitor, peaking with PEDs, with your training, with your nutrition at the right fucking time in order to present your absolute best on stage. Now, I believe, this is from memory, I think she got, I'm going to say, of the three lifts, I think she had a state record in one and a national standard or national record in one of the other lifts. I don't think she hit the £1,000 because one of the lifts was slightly off. But nevertheless, this is a menopausal woman, state fucking record, Steve, and national fucking record. Nothing to be sniffed at whatsoever. She's also posted up, both then and more recently, her husband, Boyd Rage, 69, was super proud, and I think he might have posted them up actually, photographs of the shape that she got into because they both wanted to compete in weight classes in powerlifting. So he could get, I think it was looking close towards 700-pound deadlift. So yeah, look, she got in super muscular, super functional, great fucking shape. And again, menopausal there, Steve.
So let's get into the next one, my female IFBB log. Yeah, and the last one, her name is Iron_Queen. And let me tell you a little bit about what she's using. Her daily protocol is 1 IU HGH, zero point 0.1 milliliters of T3, zero point 0.1 milliliters of Clen. So people like to use T3 and Clen and HGH for fat loss. Her weekly protocol is zero point 0.1 milliliters of Test E, zero point 0.1 milliliters of Primo. She's 40 years old and she's 72 kilograms. She's a classic example of someone who used to be in a great shape, but then got out of shape. So now she wants to get back into shape. She is a former pro bodybuilder and is looking to get back into competing. So this is the objective of the log. And her log, it's been an interesting follow so far. She's been updating it little by little, and I think she's starting to kind of get into better shape now as she's kind of progressed on this mobster. So I already touched upon her cycle mobster, and I touched upon her age and her kilograms and how she's getting back into shape. So what are your thoughts on Iron Queen? Give us a quick synopsis of her.
Yeah, so again, Steve, I was looking at the fractional amounts that she's used, and again, I'm trying to work out the numbers here. So she talked about 0.1 mil of testosterone in our fate, which I worked out to be typically 20 to 25 milligrams a week, and zero point 0.1 mil of Primo, uh, which again is between 20 to 30. It depends on the dosage per milligram, per milliliter, sorry. So again, this is slightly higher than some of the other cycles, but overall, it's still a fraction of what the men would be using. I'm just looking at the avatar here, Steve, and the shape she's got herself into. She says here FMG Figure Pro, and she wants to step onto the IFBB stage. She's serious about her shit. She's definitely, and she hasn't competed since November 2023. I'm just looking at the overall thing here, competing 12 years ago. Look, when you get to this level, when you want to be serious, the sheer length of time she's competing, her ambition is to be on stage on an IFBB stage. I suspect possibly more than men. This is a really, really
Yeah.
fucking big
So
deal. It's
she's
up there
so,
with,
so talk about how she is a pro. She already
yeah.
has a pro card. How does that work when you take time away? Do you keep your pro card if you pay every year in her
No,
situation?
so that you have to pay per year, Steve. And I'm trying to remember. I believe it might have changed it instead. I've actually seen something else suggested recently. I think you're looking at $250 a year. And the idea of having IFBB Pro after your name is a big fucking deal. It's kind of like earning your stripes or getting a medal. It's a big fucking deal. You don't necessarily have to make money from being a pro, but if you've done the grind, if you worked your fucking ass off, and you finally got to the point where you can add that on your resume, on your CV, or when you put yourself out there. No different to people getting doctorates and PhDs and whatever the fuck, Steve. And a lot of people will put those initials after their name because they fucking earned it. So that is a big deal. Doesn't necessarily pay the bills. And there's an enormous amount that's been argued about of people with pro cards, with pro titles, with pro whatever the fuck, that don't compete for multiple numbers of years and still call themselves an IFBB pro. But the reality here with Iron Queen is that's not the case because she's looking to come back and compete, looking to come back and kick ass and so on and so forth. So, yes, Steve.
All right, so let's get into Ultima really quick and talk about Ultima. And look, whether you're a male or female, using the wrong gear can cause some serious issues. Females, especially. If you're using what you think is Anavar, and a lot of these competitors that we talked about are using Anavar, and you're using fake Anavar, it's really something else. You can get yourself into serious trouble and have permanent issues. Same thing with growth hormone. You want to waste your money on low quality growth hormone, you're wasting your money, and you could be taking who knows what. It could be 20% growth hormone and 80% something else. So if you want high quality gear that's 98, 99% plus quality, Ultima is the place to go. They also have excellent prices and they're great for both male and females. They have everything you could possibly need as a one-stop shop. So they are a wonderful source. I've used them many, many times. Their prices are outstanding. Their shipping is outstanding. Mobster, touch upon Ultima and take us to the disclaimer.
Yeah, just for women, Steve, and I've talked about this on other shows. I do like the fact that they have their own version of Femora, which is essentially a female dosed version of Anavar. And it's done dead easy, Steve. Instead of having to buy a 20, 30, 40, 50 milligram pill and cut it up or divvy it up or whatever the fuck is, you get here typically the pills are 2.5 to 5 milligrams. They're dosed perfectly, so you can split them, and they're perfect for women. And obviously, the ultimate having that knows that they have a part of their market, which is female athletes looking to get in shape, looking to compete. Look, 100%, just to finish on this thought, Steve, I'd argue that all the women on our forum, and specifically the logs that we talked about today, I might critique dosages. I might say certain things about the way that they perceive themselves, their shape, or whatever else. But look, same as the ladies that come to my gym that are serious about your shit. You're out there kicking ass, taking names, transforming your own physiques. Some of you are competing. Some of you out there trying to be state and national fucking champions or state and national record holders. The same as any man that's transformed the physique or whatever else. You're an inspiration, ladies. And if you come onto the forums and you do these kind of logs, you're not just quote unquote representing for yourself, but you're representing for other women. You are inspiring people around you. Women will come onto the forums and see the transformation that you've done, see you competing, see you up there in your bikini, see you up there with your hair and your nails and your showtime, and think, I can fucking do this shit. We obviously want to, when we do these shows, get you to do it the safest way with the least dosage so that the side effects are minimized as much as possible. At the same time, we want you to understand those risks and sort of mitigate them as much as you possibly can. So, yes, absolutely. Come onto the forums, come and kick ass, tell us about your journey. And if nothing else, ladies, show the fucking men how this shit is done. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.